Hi, good evening. I'm Jim Crescitelli, Operations and Program Director for the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation. And tonight, in honor of Black History Month, our guests are Annie King Morris and her sister Bernice Duncan Morris. And Bernice's son is going to be chiming in towards the end, and his name is H. Alexander Duncan. So we have quite a crew talking about the history of East Winter Garden, our traditionally African-American neighborhood. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Bernice and Ann for many years, and we've shared a lot of stories, and we would like to share, with our audience here on Facebook Live. So I guess we can just start from the beginning, yeah? The beginning of the family. And can you tell everyone how the family came to settle in Winter Garden? And I'll let you say the magic number, how long ago that was.
It's been many years, Jim, but let me tell you, she loves the Duncan, but she is Bernice King Duncan. Not Mara, she can't take my name.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
I'm not gonna let you do it to her.
I get all confused with the name, so sorry. Bernice King Duncan. There we
Bernice
go.
King Duncan, yes, that's my sister.
There we go. And they are sisters, yes. Okay, tell us how the family came to settle in Winter Garden and when.
Yes, I would love to do that. I am the historian of the King family.
Excellent.
And I love being the historian because we have a great story. My granddaddy, Jimmy King, from a plantation in southern Georgia, came to Winter Garden 100 years ago.
Wow.
And he was encouraged to come by his cousin, Egertha Marion, who was the owner of a progressive restaurant and boarding house on 10th Street in Winter Garden.
Right there in the heart of the business section.
Yes, yes. And she encouraged him to come because of his farming abilities. And he came with his family, and they stayed here. And my family is the only family that stayed the entire 100 years.
Wow.
And we're so glad that we did that because we accomplished so much.
Yeah, we want to hear about that as we go along.
Okay.
How many children did Mom and Dad have? I know you all have a big family.
Yes, we had a large family. They had 8 children. Our oldest brother, Joseph, he died as an infant. But the 7 of us were raised right here in Winter Garden.
Wow, that's amazing. That is incredible. Coming up young in East Winter Garden, what was life like over in the neighborhood with a large family and all your neighbors? How did that go? What was it like?
We had a super time. We grew up in a neighborhood called Whispering Pines. Whispering Pines was like the crown black neighborhood of Winter Garden because
Nice.
it was built after the other quarters had already been established.
Okay.
So we grew up in a brand new home in Whispering Pines, and all of the homes were built. I think we moved in around 1943.
Okay, during the
Yes,
war.
we had a 3-bedroom home. At the time, there weren't indoor bathrooms, but later on, that was installed. We had a big, beautiful family home in a really quiet, nice neighborhood, Whistling Pine. Everybody loved Whistling Pine, and they always thought, wow, the Kings live in Whispering Pines. That's a big deal.
Is that the neighborhood that's located on Hennis Road, going up
Hennis
towards
Road, yes.
yeah, Hennis and Division Street up in that corner where the trees are? Yeah, I think along Hennis Road. Sure,
Yes.
exactly. So, yeah, and I always because of segregation, churches were like centers of socialization and getting together and exchanging information. Was that true of y'all too over there in East Winter Garden?
Yes.
Coming up?
It's funny, we grew up, the Baptist church and the Methodist church, there were 2 churches. They were the main churches in Winter Garden. My mother was a Baptist, and my dad was a Methodist. And back in the day, the Baptist held churches on the 1st and 3rd Sundays, and the Methodist held churches on the 2nd and 4th. So we were part of both of the congregations, but it ended up all of the children joined the church that our mother was a part of. which was Bethlehem Missionary Baptist Church.
That's the church that stands on East Plant Street with the bell in the garden, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, the white church with the bell.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a pretty little
And our
place.
family is the oldest family with members still part of the congregation.
That's
Yes, we're the oldest
wow.
continuous family in the Baptist church
That's a
right
point
now.
of honor. Yep.
Yes.
So this was an important place. That they also had school, didn't they? Didn't that church also have school for the African American kids? Did they start to go to school there?
They did, it was a Methodist church where
Okay.
they had the school on Center Street.
Okay, down the okay, gotcha.
Yes, on Center Street. They had the
Okay.
kindergarten, and then they eventually built the elementary school on Center Street in Winter
Yeah,
Garden.
the little.
And even though we are members of the Baptist church, still each year we spend 1 week at the Methodist church in Winter Garden in honor of our father and our grandfather, the Kings.
That's nice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were Methodists, and my mom was a Baptist, and it just so happened all of the children grew up as Baptists. But back in the day, churches were at the Baptist church first and third Sundays, and at the Methodist church second and fourth. So we attended
Yeah.
both of the services because of our parents.
That's a lot of experience and education and socializing. You knew everybody in town, I guess, from that.
Exactly.
Yep. So you're coming up in church in East Winter Garden, and it's the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. If I can ask, what was life like in the neighborhood under those times of segregation when neighborhoods just did not mix?
Well, Ann is going to tell you about our cow. We had our own little business. And she's going to tell you about what we did as kids.
Oh yeah, we had a cow named Daisy, and we milked Daisy. We churned, made butter. We had the molder, and we had buttermilk, sweet milk, and then the butter. And we sold our products throughout the black community in Winter Garden. It was really funny, and it was fun. There were no street lights in the black neighborhood.
Oh,
You know, we
wow.
had different sections. We had the quarters, which is up Center Street. And then we had Britt quarters, which was across the railroad.
That's where folks who worked for the Britt family lived?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then we lived in the new development, which was Whispering Pines. And none of these areas, like Whispering Pines and Brick Quarters, had any lights, street lights.
Wow.
So with both of our parents, well, my mother did work at home, but with the parents working and the children in school, we had to do all of our selling our milk, delivering at night.
Oh, wow.
And I tell you what, my brother Charles and I should have been in the Olympics because we were delivering milk and eggs and butter at night, no street lights, and we could run.
Wow.
And we just ran from house to house, delivering our products, and we had a good business. We had our parents. Neither one of them went to college. My mother, I think, she went to 8th grade education, but they were brilliant-minded
Yeah.
people.
It's the way the children grew
And they stressed education. That was very important to them. And they worked very hard to give each of us an opportunity. It was up to us what we did with it.
Yeah.
But each of us had the opportunity to go to college, or not even if we didn't go to college, get into a good business or do something.
So this business experience started you off good,
While
how
we
to
were
deal with
children,
customers,
while we were young,
right?
we learned
And
about
it was
business.
just on the east side, right? Just on East Winter Garden? You didn't come over to other neighborhoods in
Oh
Winter
yeah.
Garden?
Oh no.
Like
We.
over-
Oh, you mean like
over here
the
on the
white
west side,
neighborhoods
yeah,
as
the
far
white-
as,
the white neighborhoods,
No, we
right.
didn't sell to them. No,
So it was
but we
still
sold throughout,
kind of separate.
Winter Garden.
Yeah, yeah. That is great experience.
It
Yeah.
was. It taught us work ethics, because there was nobody lazy in the King family. We started working at an early age. We learned the importance of contributing, working together, doing things, and we knew that in order to achieve, you got to work.
Yeah, that's true. Goes for anybody, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and especially difficult in some communities, especially in
Yes.
segregated areas. Absolutely. I know you all worked later for the Britt family over on East Plant Street. Where the Britt Mansion is, where the law office is now. Yeah. Three sisters worked for the Britts, right?
Yeah, it was so funny. As youngsters, we were always taught, like it was okay, it was good to work as long as you did an honest job.
Mm-hmm.
And this one here, I was not ready for employment.
Oh?
And she told the lady was looking for somebody, and she said, I have a sister. And that's how that all began.
And my mother, she emphasized family, strength, and work. And she thought that this would be a very, very good opportunity for us to get knowledge from another system.
Mm-hmm.
So by going there, as I always like to say, we all learn from each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. When different communities begin to work with each other and mix.
No, y'all gotta explain that correctly. That narrative is not correct. There's no, please explain that correctly, y'all.
Yeah.
As far as because it make it sound like there was some, when you say you guys this was the segregated South. White people want to look and to learn from African Americans, so we're not going to make it sound better than it was.
Well, maybe he means socially, personally, humanity,
they
humanly.
were king girls, so they were getting a little bit of a different experience. So, some of the things they were allowed to get away with families like the Brits wouldn't have been acceptable from people from Brits quarters or the quarters. So we don't want that to get lost in this exchange.
That was the corrections that Anna Ruth used to make all the time. So you can talk about your corrections if you care to.
Like if you would like to tell them, okay.
Okay, we can go on, Jim.
Yeah. Input's good. You had a brother who was a policeman, first African American policeman in Winter Garden. He was
Charles Alexander King.
Charles Alexander King. How did that come about? How did that position come about for him?
Well, they had asked him to be a policeman,
Uh-huh.
but he really wasn't interested in being a policeman at that time because he had been recommended by the principal then, Mr. Maxey, as someone who would probably serve the community well. And it was only when there was an incident in the pool hall that he didn't appreciate what one of the white policemen that came down into the community did to one of the guys in the pool hall. So he came uptown to the police station to make a complaint. And once he made that complaint, he said, well, it might be a good idea to have a black cop in the area.
There you go.
So this is when he took control of himself to say, I think I'll take that position. And he did a tremendous job, and the community loved him greatly.
That goes along with what your mom and dad were saying, to just be the best self you can, no matter what. He decided,
That's exactly
he decided
they were saying.
to do
They
good.
were saying, keep the strength your granddad and grandfather had. Keep the strength. You must go to school. You must get educated because these are the things that will lead you into being what we want you to be. And they did a very good job of that.
And that benefits everybody.
Being
Yeah.
a good citizen and being able to, not only lead the people, but be an example for the other young people to follow. And that's what we tried to exemplify.
Yeah, that's great. And Annie, you were the, I think you told me you were the first African American to hold an office position in downtown Winter Garden?
Yes, I was. When I left college at Florida A&M University,
Right.
everybody was saying, go to D.C. or go north, get good jobs. So when I left A&M, I went up to Washington, D.C., and I got a job with the National Education Association, which is the teachers' organization.
NEA, sure.
And then in 1970, I came back home. And it was during that time, a lot of marches had been going on, and people had been integrating gradually into different areas. But in Winter Garden, it had not happened yet. And the educators, Mrs. Maxey, she's everybody knows the Maxes.
Yeah,
first
Maxey
teachers.
Elementary is named for them, right. Came down from Jacksonville to teach African American kids, give them an education, yeah.
And Mrs. Hope, so they all encouraged me to apply for a position at the Florida Telephone Company. And I did, and at that time, Mr. McQuillan was the manager of Florida Telephone. And the main office was in Ocala, I think.
I think so.
And once a week or once a month, they would come down and take applications. And no black person had ever applied for a job. So the Mrs. Max and Mrs. Holt encouraged me to come up and apply for the job. And I came up, and it was a little simple test you had to take. I don't know if everybody had to take it or whether or not I was singled out. But anyway, I passed it with flying colors, and the people from the head office were very impressed. And they said, you would be hearing from us, from the manager here in Winter Garden, in a week. And they came once a month, and I had not heard from the manager. So the next month when they came, they said, oh, we were looking for you. And I said, nobody notified me. And they were very shocked because the manager had made a remark that he wasn't hiring any niggers to work for him.
Oh my gosh.
And so he got the word from somebody who said, oh, yes, you are. And so he had to call me in. And it's so funny. It was funny to me because I guess because of my experience in Washington, D.C., and with my education from Florida A&M, I was very secure. And when I went in for the interview, he didn't just call me, he called the white lady from the office to come in. He did not look at me the entire interview. He looked at the white lady, and he asked her, I was her, I was she, but it was never.
Never a direct, never a direct
Never. But the
question.
good thing about that, to make a long story short, he found out I was a very efficient, exceptionally good worker. I was personable. I got along with people.
That's what it takes in communications. Yeah.
Yes.
That building is right in this neighborhood, right
Yes,
near
it's
this
right in
building.
this
Yeah,
neighborhood.
right by across the street from the church.
Yes,
there.
the
Yeah.
Florida Telephone Company.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. Culture Keepers, y'all are affiliated with an organization called the Culture Keepers. That's sort of African American Historical Society, almost in a way, social and culturally. Explain that to our
The Culture
viewers.
Keepers started back by Mr. William Johnson. That's another very prominent black family in Winter
Johnson,
Garden.
sure.
Mr. Johnson started the Culture Keepers, and it's a very successful organization. It keeps up, it has banquets every year, and one of the main things that it does is give scholarships to black children that's attending college. And I think everybody in this area are very pleased with what they do and how they do it. That's another big educational thing. And I am just, Annie was talking about, she went to business school at Florida A&M University, and as you know, Florida A&M has one of the best business schools in the country. And of course she was qualified for that job at the telephone company. And as a matter of fact, I like to say things about Florida A&M because our family of Florida A&M people, even though some of the kids have gone to other colleges. But we have 4 generations that have gone to Florida A&M. My grandson graduated in 2012, and we are very, very proud of that because the HBC use very good colleges, and we encourage that. But Florida A&M is the one that we push for.
Wow, you've got stakes in that. Yep.
Yes.
You mentioned the banquets. A couple of years ago, I was invited for the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation to come and display African American photographs and paraphernalia that we have at the museum during that banquet. And I noticed on a table a Drew High School football jacket. I'd never seen one in my life, and they had this on display. One of the culture keeper gentlemen had loaned it to the banquet, and I'd never seen one. The Wildcats, I think the team was, right? Yeah.
We were the Wildcats, and we had a good athletic department.
What year did you all become a high school at Drew? Because I graduated from, I know they became a high school my senior year, because I graduated from Jones.
Right.
And it used to be the kids from Winter Garden go to junior high school, and then 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, they would go to Orlando.
Before they had a high school here in Winter Garden,
from Jones
right?
High. But my senior year in high school,
I think in 1958, Drew High became a school in Winter Garden. But before that time, my oldest sister, which is one of the first black children in Winter Garden to go to college, one of the first 5, it was 5 of them, to go to college, to graduate from college. They did not have any transportation from Winter Garden to Orlando. And my parents had to pay for her to catch the transit bus to go to school in Orlando in order to graduate, to be able to go to college. And she was my grandfather's first grandchild to finish college. And that's something that he was so interested in.
So many
and one of the
accomplishments
first
in this
blacks
family.
from Winter Garden to graduate from college. She and 4 other blacks.
The King family has a lot of firsts in your
Yes,
family,
A
which
lot
is
of firsts
very
in Winter
Yes.
Garden, and we
Yeah.
are very proud of that.
That's
We're very
incredible.
proud of the strength that we have had to do these things that we were taught. We are very happy for the many children. There's several grandchildren that have their college education, several that have their masters, and one of my sons has his doctors. So we are proud of the education department in our family.
Yeah.
It means so much, and it makes us think of what we have done for our grandfather.
Right.
He's dead, and you don't know what dead people do or say or hear, but what we do know is that we have accomplished some of the things that they encouraged us to
He's
do.
got to be proud of you.
Yes,
I
and not
remember-
only was my grandfather a farmer and a worker, but he was also a minister of the word. He was a Methodist minister, and I have a son who has his doctorate degree in divinity. And so we have people who have succeeded in all fields, education and religion.
Yeah.
And we're proud of all of our kids.
This reminds me of something we were talking about once. A couple of years ago, I was asking about, the bad, old, sad old days of segregation, which happened, and you said, we didn't sit around crying.
No.
We went to school, we got our educations, we worked,
We were happy.
yeah.
We had a good family life. I think that's the
Within
basics
the family, yeah.
of it all. We had a very intelligent, they didn't have much education, but they were gifted from God. They had a moral code. They were good. And my mother, she was as educated as any educator that I ever knew. She didn't speak broken English. She spoke well. Nobody would have not known she was not a college graduate. It was a God thing, I think.
Yeah, and pride and being proud of oneself. This bodes for families everywhere. It's an example of what can be accomplished, no matter who we are. Absolutely, it's very impressive. As we move forward, what do y'all don't live in East Winter Garden now, correct?
No.
What are your thoughts, and maybe your son would like to chime in? Thoughts on East Winter
Go
Garden?
sit over there.
Sure, go on over.
I want to make sure I got the producer's permission.
Yeah.
Back there off of camera.
As y'all know, there's an East Winter Garden initiative which is working on the east side of town, the traditional African American community. And H. Alexander wanted to mention a few things about that.
The thing about that is, it's time for a new takeover, right? Like, these guys have done their part. They're not going to be running around and holding the torch no more, right? So as far as the East Winter Garden, a lot of that goes back to their big brother, Charles King, who I'm named after. So you got Charles Alexander and H. Alexander. And a lot of people don't know, he took the water service to East Winter Garden.
The water service?
Yeah, they didn't have water lines.
Okay.
Right? Remember, when you're talking about you had outhouses, you didn't have utilities run to
That's
the
right,
houses.
built into the house, right.
Right, and so as a 21 Kingmen, right, because that's a group we have that come from our elders, we like to see some job training and economic opportunity programs presented to the youth and young adults of East Winter Garden. Water and utility services paid attention to. Sports incubator, being that since y'all guys were talking about first and you forgot your nephew, who's the first All-American in Winter Garden history and first professional athlete out of Winter Garden.
Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, he was drafted by the Falcons.
And that's
Elliot Harris.
Yeah.
Roy Elliott Harris. From
Our oldest sister, Juanita Harris, her
Oh, her
son went to the
son, okay.
University
So
of
he was an
Florida.
All-American at West Orange, All-American at University of Florida, and then went to the Falcons.
So thousands of more people know this. This is important.
Well, the
this
thing
is, great.
is,
Thank
you got this type of talent still in Winter Garden, and maybe they don't all have the foundational setup they need to make it to the next level. As well as we'd always like to see a better relationship between law enforcement and the community, especially with my uncle Charles having been the first black police officer in Winter Garden. And my dad, her husband, being one of the first African Americans deputized in Central Florida. So
Another
that's
first.
that's
Another first.
That's a pretty big deal. So those are some things we love to see. For
I agree. We the spirit in this town. It's had some rough times. It's had some really great times. But I think everybody seems to be aware
I
of
think
moving forward together in a good way.
and giving some historical perspective to when you're talking to them. There was no East Winter Garden for them, or for their father or grandfather. Right. So that's more something for contemporary times. So when they're talking, they lived in Whispering Pines, which would not have been considered even a part of what necessarily is considered East Winter Garden today.
Correct.
Just to give people
up above it, north of it.
just to give people a little geographic and
Yeah.
historical perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
So when they're talking about these things, like they might be referring to the quarters, which would have been located in what is now known as East Winter Garden.
Correct.
And
2 or
it's-
3 over there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be important.
I think we have a map in the African American history folder that mentions, I think, breakwaters,
Breakwaters is all the quarters.
Whispering
Right.
Pines is up
Yes,
on
Whispering
Hannah's.
Pines.
Right.
Then on the west side, there's another quarter. So
Right.
it was, and they were always outside the city limits.
Right, and so we'll look at it one way where they see it from. They grew up in a different.
Like you say, perspective, historical perspective.
Right.
Yeah, and all the points converge into what we need to do to go forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Does anyone have anything else to offer or say? This has been very nice.
This has been an honor, and I like to say that I'm happy to have this interview with you, and I was also one of the first to become a member
Yes.
of
Another
Winter
first.
Garden Heritage Foundation.
Yes.
And I've enjoyed my experiences working with the city as a whole and bringing in different cultural events within our community.
Yeah, you've been a board member for a long time.
We have joined together, and we've done some good things in the community.
Yes.
And it's been a blessing, and it's been great.
It's been a blessing for me
Working
too, and us, of
together.
course. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And thank you so much
You
for
done.
My
having
pleasure.
us.
Okay.
Bernice, anything?
Yes, I would like to say thank you for inviting us up
My
here.
pleasure.
And as you know, when I talk to you, I always talk about my family, because without my family, I don't think I would have had the growth that I had. I really, and I like to tell people, I never considered myself, when they talk about segregation, I never considered myself segregated from anything, because I was always so happy. And I think happiness is, you know, what makes people get what they get.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this real quick. I'm looking
That's
at the
okay.
clock.
Take your time.
But I always wanted to be a nurse. So, and I never wanted to leave my mom. And I'm going to tell you that. I follow her everywhere she went. I never wanted to leave my mom. So I went to Orange Memorial Hospital. That's what it was called then, because they had a nursing school.
Oh, down the street
Downtown
here?
Orlando.
Sure. Oh, downtown Orlando. Orange
because
Memorial.
they had
Gotcha.
a nursing school, and they said they couldn't accept me because of the color of my skin. So I ended up going to Florida A&M University, following my big sister. And it turned out to be great, because the nursing school in Orlando did not offer Bachelor's of Science degrees in nursing. And Florida A&M University was the first university in the state of Florida to offer a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing.
Another first.
And that was great. And we had one
That's
of the
great. That
best,
is.
it was one of the best nursing schools that you could go to. So I was very fortunate. That was a fortunate time to be turned down because of the color of your skin.
Yeah, it's a blessing in disguise,
A
like they
blessing in
say. There you go.
disguise. Yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and H. Alexander, a pleasure meeting you as well. And I would just like to say to our audience, thank you for tuning in and hearing this gracious family, what they had to say. And tune in, what is this, 1953? No. Check our Facebook page for updates on future events and historical photos. We have a lot of great photos we're posting for Black History Month. And check our webpage. And of course, you're always welcome to make donations or become members to help keep this history going forward for all people. Thank you so much.